where people bring their talents together. And listen to this, that talents coming together creates something that neither of them can do by themselves, just like me and my wife. So you've got elements inside of your business that if they were coupled together and there was a chemistry that was created in their work efforts, it's going to produce something that neither of them could ever produce by themselves. It's impossible. You see, people talk about scale, but they think that they can scale doing these individual route running. You can't do that. Now you can add more people to it and that may scale, but there is gained ground available to groups and teams and communities who will start cross-pollinating their talent to produce something that alone is impossible.
Is culture something that I need to learn too, besides sales, marketing, finance, administration, and insurance, and all the rest things that I need to learn? And if yes, how can I start?
I think culture lays a foundation that everything else is built off of. Because if you can ever get the people to become a team, working together, willing to give to one another, then the systems and processes will have more capacity because we are all doing the same thing, moving in the same direction. And so I think, culture, community, whatever you want to call it, is critically important to advancement. And, when you're looking at culture, every piece of the culture matters.
Welcome to Roofers Going Digital TV, where we present the leaders and the trends that are changing the path of the roofing industry. This is Pancho Serrano, and enjoy the show. Hey, what's up, roofing fam? We are here in another episode with Roofers Going Digital TV with the man, the legend, Reggie. Brock, welcome to the show, my man.
Buddy Francisco, it's so good to see you. It's been a while, but I've had this one marked on my calendar since you invited me, and really looking forward to hanging out with you. Appreciate it.
No, I'm really excited to have you. Mm-hmm. I feel we are reaching new levels on the experts that we are getting in the show, and mm-hmm. you are one of them that it's getting this bar higher. So thank you for your time, and I'm excited for all the expertise and knowledge that you are gonna share, and everything that I'm gonna learn.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna do my best. I just hope nobody leaves disappointed.
I don't think so, Reggie. So, Reggie, in these two things. The first one is, this is your show. We wanna know everything about you. And the second one is, we love stories, and we want to know everything about you. How do you start in the roofing industry? Yep. What's your experience? What are you doing now? So everybody knows who are you, like who doesn't know you, because a lot of people know you. But go ahead, Reggie.
Yeah. So I got into roofing because I failed at a lot of other things. And I know that's not what generally people want to hear, but it's the truth. I mean, 16 years ago, I fell into roofing because of a failure that I'd had in business and in my personal life. And I think the message that comes out of that is not where you start, but what you do in those moments that matters. So everybody is going to have moments that's disappointing, like they're unexpected. And they just have this ability to set you back if you're not careful. And, the mistakes that I made were not just damaging to me, but they were damaging to the people I loved the most. And so me getting into roofing was nothing really, it wasn't some great story. It was like a recovery story, meaning I was in the insurance business for 25 years, and I built a really solid career, and then the bottom fell out. And here's what I want people to hear when they hear about my story. Your decisions turn into consequences.
Okay.
And so you can't think that everything that you're doing, you get scot-free by. Like if you make mistakes, and one of the things that it's hard for me to handle seeing people is they just don't want to own their mistakes. And I know what that feels like. But it was the beginning of me being set free when I was willing to take ownership of the mistakes that I had made and the pain it brought on people that I really, really love. So when I tell people I got into roofing 16 years ago, it wasn't out of some beautiful story, it was out of some ashes. Like we had gone, and I got into roofing because it was quick to get in. I knew I could make a lot of money pretty quickly, and I needed to recover quickly. And so roofing, even with all the changes that have happened today, is still a way, an industry where people can get in and recalibrate their lives pretty quickly. Now, I know things have changed, and I know there's mortgages involved. I know there's insurance involved. I know that there's claims problems that develop, but by and large, I got in this business not wanting to, but I chose to because I saw a path to recovery that I saw nowhere else. And so, if you scale back from that, I was born and raised in a preacher's home. So I've been around church my whole life. I went to Bible college, and I came out, got married quick, and not long after that, this lady and I figured this wasn't going to work, and we ended up getting divorced. And in the particular denomination I was a part of, if you got divorced, that meant get a new career. And that's how I landed in insurance, and then ultimately I landed in roofing. So a lot of stops along the way, but that's kind of an overview of kind of how I started and a little bit of my story. Played college football and had an enjoyable time there. So. And like you said, I've been around for 16 years. Most people know parts of our story, but I think what I want to convey to your audience is, look, man, you're going to make mistakes, own them, and your setback is not more important than your comeback. And what I want to be remembered for is not my setbacks, but my comebacks. And I've got my son, we have one child, and my current wife and I have been married 37 years, and we've raised him. And one of the things that he's learned is that no moment defines your life. It's just a part of it. Mm-hmm. And so what you do with those moments is what will either introduce you to a future of better, or you just keep wallowing in it and you stay put and nothing ever changes. And so if I'm proud of anything I've done as a father, is just to show him that your moments don't define you. They're all put together for a purpose. And if you do the best with what you got after even a setback, the story can be rewritten.
I love it. Hey, Reggie, one comment about everything that you said, and you won't believe this, and probably this is completely new for you.
Yeah.
I play college football in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah, there is college football. Yes, American football, and I did play over there.
Good.
I just wanted to mention that.
Well, when you said that, I thought, because I know that football, American style, is caught on across the world.
Oh yes.
And I had actually heard that they'd played a version in Mexico of American football. So hey, we're gridiron brothers.
Oh yes, of course, yes. Yeah. But keep going. So you start 16 years ago, and did you start in a roofing company, or did you start in the manufacturer side, or what were you doing?
So when I got into roofing 16 years ago, I started with a guy by the name of Brandon Smythe. Brandon owns Ken Elliott Roofing, and he's still there. He's and I met him in Dallas Fort Worth, where I was living at the time. And my nephew knew him, and my nephew, he used Brandon to do all of his re-roofs. I'm sorry, his new construction and re-roofs, but primarily new construction. So we met, and my nephew introduced me to Brandon, and I remember telling my nephew this. I'm like, I'm in a bad spot. Why would you make it worse by introducing me to a roofer? I'm like, and so I quickly realized that, and Brandon was very helpful to me to understand the business, and there was a way for me to make cash quick, which is what I needed, because back then there wasn't any mortgage endorsements required. There wasn't, literally an adjuster would come out and get up on the roof with you, If they totaled the roof, they would write the estimate in their truck, give you the estimate, and give you your first check. It was that easy. Like, I could see my path to financial recovery. And so Brandon gave me a spot and an opportunity. I met another young man by the name of Jeff Ogle. Jeff's in the is in the same, he's in Dallas, Fort Worth now. And those two guys really raised me in roofing, like just helping me to understand. I knew the insurance side of it. Like, I knew the policy because I came from insurance. What I didn't know was damage, right? And so they showed me how to put the damage piece together. But once I got off the roof, I knew how to deal with the homeowner. Like, that was easy for me. And so that's where I learned. So I sold roofs on the ground. Literally door knocking for 5 years before I did anything else. And I loved it. And I loved, being, talking with homeowners. And, I loved being able to help fix the problem that they had, which was kind of in my nature. And so for some reason, one of the commitments that I had to myself, because I didn't know any better, was every job I ever sold, I collected deductible, every one of them. And I didn't know that homeowners weren't supposed to pay, or that roofers thought that homeowners weren't supposed to pay. So I collected all my deductibles, and that we didn't, in Texas in particular, even today you struggle with people wanting to pay their deductible. And back then we had $250, $500, maybe $1,000 deductibles. There were no percentage deductibles. So what I realized in knowing claims is that the profit generator inside of my claim was always the deductible. So I wasn't willing to give that away. So I collected deductible on every single job I've ever done in roofing, ever, big or small. And people started hearing about that and asked me to come and teach them how to do that. And so I left roofing sales like that and started consulting for different guys in Texas primarily, just to, how do you position yourself as a sales guy to be able to pick up the deductible? What's the requirements of the policy? Why the homeowner should have to pay? And, I started giving hopefully guys some good advice on that. I ended up in college. I went to work for a managed repair company. It was really the first managed repair company that made a real amount of impact in the market. And part of that required me to move to Colorado. And so I understood now the carrier side of it as well as the sales side of it. And finally, I ended up at Beacon for 5 years. I was on their national account team for 5 years. And then about 2 years ago, Francisco, I decided that at this season in my life, I've got a lot of information in my head and a lot of experience, and I think I can help guys maybe in a different way. And so I left Beacon and decided to kind of go into more of a coaching and, role to help people kind of understand some of the parts of the business that maybe my experience would help with, and that's kind of what I did. So it's been a fun journey. I've seen about every side of the business that's known, and so as a result, I've been able to make a lot of friends and help some folks, and them help me. And this is a great community. Like, there's some, we got some, some bad apples out there, but by and large, this is a great community, and getting to know people, interact people, collaborate with people, and work with people has been very rewarding for me in the last 16 years.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I couldn't be, yes. I love this industry. I love the community. And I think, I couldn't agree more, Reggie.
Yeah. When you run into people like Jim Johnson and Chuck Toki, and you start running into people that are legends in the business, and you become friends with them. I was just with them at Top Rep this last couple of days. And so to be able to be around that quality of an individual and that group of individuals, and then it growing every day, I meet somebody new almost every day, and I start seeing, man, what a great talent this industry is full of. And how do we then get people to start doing things together more cooperatively? How do we, to ultimately create impact on their lives and their family's life is kind of the goal.
Yeah, actually, Reggie, I met you in the Top Rep New Braunfels like 3 or 4 years ago.
That's right.
I was thinking like, where did I meet Reggie? I have been thinking about for the last 3 days. And right now that you mentioned Top Rep, I was like, oh yeah, I met him in the Top Rep. Yeah, actually, talking about community, Jim Johnson, I met him probably 3 or 4 years ago. We went dinner. John Dye connects me with him. Then I went dinner with Jim, my wife, and Michelle.
Yeah.
Then he invited us to his birthday in his house, a really small group. And from that day, that birthday become a tradition. So we have been celebrating for the last 3 years a really small group of roofers. I don't want to say roofers because not all of them are roofers, but they are in the roofing industry.
Yeah.
And he has been helping me a lot with all this connection. They actually say that I'm their Mexican son. And I really love those guys. So Jim, if you are seeing this, we love you, man.
Yeah, they're legends. And,
oh yeah.
And I think the thing that matters most is not how smart he is or how much of the industry he knows. He's just the real deal. There's not, he doesn't put on, he doesn't try to be something he's not. He just is what he is. His character is impeccable. Like he doesn't, you're not going to question him. And I mean, he's been a good role model for all of us to be able to go like, hey, we can do this business the right way. And even though sometimes it may cause what seems to be a loss in our business because we're not doing the same things that some of these other guys are doing, it builds our credibility and influence and integrity through having developed character that I promise you is as valuable an asset as we can have as human beings. And so I'm very appreciative for those guys and the impact they've had on my life.
Same. Yep. So Reggie, you went in the Top Rep this week or in the few past days, and then you were in the SRC.
Yep.
Was there anything different that caught your eye, or was like more people? Like, was there anything different in all your experience?
So it's two different experiences. I was at SRC last week, and SRC was the first roofing conference I ever went to. So it's kind of got a special place in my heart, right? I think April does a fantastic job and her team do a fantastic job on the event. It's a little more intimate, like it's not as big as some of the other conferences, which I love. And she has always been able to have high level speakers there to kind of be able to share and inform and provide some better understanding to roofers about how they can be successful. I sat on a panel there, enjoyed my time with, I was with Dan Warrock, John Cenac, and a couple of my other new friends, and we were able to talk to people about how to build blueprint in your life that's predictable. And so that was really fun. Got to catch up with some folks that I hadn't seen and so a lot of these conferences are just homecomings for me, like I get to see guys that I don't see a lot. And so that's always really good for me. So I was grateful to be able to go to to SRC again. Top Rep, this is the first of that type of Top Rep event. They have two major events a year. One of them is this year was in Myrtle Beach, and then they got one in August, I think, that's in Cincinnati or Cleveland, maybe Cincinnati, Ohio. But I tell you, getting Chuck Toki to say yes to me to speak at that event was harder than getting my wife to say I do 37 years ago. Right? He is very, very selective about who he brings in. They have built, Jim was kind of the co-founder of that. Chuck's kind of taken over more of the program now. Jim's very involved still, but I've never been to a conference so well organized. Like this thing was, and the power punch of education was second to none. Now it's a sales event. There's no doubt about it. It's a sales event, but the focus on details I've never seen it before. Everything was so well orchestrated. His whole team, it was like effortless. And plus, they also have more industries than just roofing there. They had some window guys there, and they had some soil guys there. I mean, sod guys there. They had power washers there. They had window guys there. They had roofers there. Anything in home improvement is at that conference. So that would be the biggest thing that I would notice about Top Rep in particular is it's not just a roofing conference, it's a sales conference. And if you sell something, you ought to be there. And so, and I guess the last thing I'd say about SRC is April was doing this conference when conferences weren't cool, right? I mean, everybody has a conference now. Nothing wrong with that. But back in those days, there wasn't any conferences. She was the one really that kind of really was a pioneer in that, and I'll always respect her for that. So yeah, I spoke at Chuck's at Top Rep, and then I was on a plant panel with some guys at SRC, and it always just blesses me to see guys that are willing to pour back into the industry to make the industry better, and both of those individuals have done that with their conferences.
Nice, yes, and the best part is that you can see how they are growing, and I feel good for them, with all these years, like people that have been in the industry for such a long time. I'm not saying that I have been 16 years like you, but even with my few years, it feels good, like everybody's participating, collaborating, and doing great with these events.
Don't you do a conference too?
No. I participate. I go to all of them. I have been to all of them, but I don't have one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think you could do a great one, but for some reason I just thought you'd done one. But anyway, it was great to see everybody and be a part of two great conferences in the last 10 days.
Agreed. I think those are two conferences that we recommend here in Roofers Going Digital, guys. You need to go Top Rep and SRC.
Yeah.
So Reggie, with all your experience, how did you end up doing this cultural operational system? Why am I asking this? Because you see everywhere sales trainings or coaching or consulting, insurance consulting, business consulting, but cultural, you don't see it that often. I see it. The way I'm seeing this, Reggie, is that you found here like a blue ocean, Like how do you get into this?
Yeah, I think Blue Ocean is a perfect example of it. I think everybody has an idea of what they think culture is, but the reason it's becoming so important to me, I think I would say it's based upon the way I was raised. I have always had an interest in people getting better, and I've always had an interest in building communities, and more importantly, being a part of them. Like I feel like I'm a better human being when I have people with me than by myself. And we're kind of in a world where people feel safer alone. Mm-hmm. People kind of run to find these silos even at work to where they stay far from each other because, we've all gone through pain. We've all gone through challenges. We've been hurt by people in the past. And now I think what happens in a lot of businesses is we come to work and we go do our job and we expect to get paid, which we should, but we stay far from each other. And me growing up, I didn't see life like that. I mean, my dad was a pastor, as I mentioned, and it was all about how do we build a community that people can trust in one another? Because if we're together, we can do more than alone and separated. So, as the more and more divide I see in the world, like people, man, it's like people. There's such hate and division in the world today. It breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart because when we're at war with one another, we're so defending our own turf or territory, whether it's political or religious or nationalities, it doesn't matter. We have lost the sense of we're better together. And so I believe that. And I believe that a culture has a whole lot to do with whether people not just come to your business, but stay in your business. And see, we right now, is there such a premium on recruiting that we think that we can just, the more people we can get in, the quicker we can get to where we want to go. And I don't find that to be the case. I think though we've attracted people, we've not yet learned how to keep them. And so we're just constantly rolling people in and out. And we even hire them thinking that. It's like, well, they're going to be here for a short period of time. Now we're going to also be trying to bring more people in at the same time, but there's no concern by most people to build a culture where people want to stay. And so it's come out of me from my history. Like I just believe I've played on a lot of teams like you have, and I felt more protected. I feel safer. I feel like it's not only me that has to worry about my success. I've got people around me wearing the same jersey, so to speak, and we're coming into the same place. And in any great team I've ever been on or a community like that, here was a common thread. I went to bed every night hoping I would wake up so I could go back. Think about what I just said. Mm-hmm. Like, I went to bed having such a full experience with my teammates. We didn't always win. We didn't always lose, but we were brothers. Like we were after the same mission and the same goal. And we realized that team advancement always gave me personal satisfaction. I just needed to contribute. And so, I would go to bed thankful that I had been there with those guys that day and just praying and hoping I would wake up tomorrow so I could do it again.
Is that possible, Reggie?
Yeah, it's possible, but I think you've got to be intentional. I'll give you a perfect example, and we can get into more detail, but I've been working with 2 companies. I beta tested this for 14 months. I wanted to make for sure this thing worked before I ever made a run at it. And both of these companies have sold. And, the private equity and all that's another conversation. But the thing that made me know this matters is one of my companies, they sold for, I think, close to $40 million or something like that. And when they got down and checks were getting cut to pay everybody, the investment group said to one of my clients, who was the owner of that company, he said, let me ask you something. How have you guarded the culture as much as you guarded your capital? Yeah. Think about that. Mm-hmm. We chase money and they noticed culture. We try to protect money and grow money, but he had decided there's a bigger asset that I have here that I can make noticeable if I'm intentional about it. And he did. And it increased his multiple because of that asset development. The problem is this: most companies don't think about, or intentional enough about what to build. And that's where I kind of come in. And, that's why I think it's so important is how do we draw people back to the center, take all of these talents. We don't have a talent problem. We have an alignment and a collection problem. So I want people to come together like I used to when I put on the same jersey with 53 other people and we walked out on the field to compete together. We had each other's back. And can I tell you one last story on this?
Of course. I love all these.
Yeah, 3 years ago, we had a reunion for my college. I had never gone to one of them before. I just didn't go. And the reason for it is I left with such deep relationships with these guys. And then over time, things just got different. And I understand that, but it disappointed me. I would go into town somewhere where I knew a friend of mine was living, who I was a teammate with. I'd call them and they always had an excuse. So I was like, I told my wife, I'm not going to that stupid reunion. They won't even see me. I'm close to town. So finally, she convinced me we needed to go. When we went, Francisco, it was in Shreveport, Louisiana. I'll never forget it. The first guy I saw when I walked into the room was my head football coach from over 40 years ago. And he came almost running to me. And he greeted my wife, said hello to her, hugged her neck. And then he looked at me and there were tears just welled up in his eyes. Hadn't seen him in 40 years. He grabbed me and he held me, and I could feel the same thing then that I felt 40 years ago. There was something that was developed between us that time could not steal from us. I started working around the room, and I started seeing guys that I had bled with and I had been one with and I had lost with, and we had eaten together, we had slept in dorms together, we had got on buses together, we had rode together. I mean, and we were just together all the time. And as I started seeing them, the resentment that I had because they wouldn't see me was removed by this deep sense of love and connectivity that happened 40 years ago. Dude, we can't stay connected to people for 4 minutes. And it's because we don't really understand the power of chemistry. Mm-hmm. When you come together and you put two elements together and they produce something that's great together that they couldn't apart, that doesn't leave memory, and time can't separate it. And so as I started seeing these guys, my heart was broken, but at the same time so encouraged. We got to the end of the meeting and my coach asked me to stand up in front of, we had 40 guys there or something like that from my original team. And he stood me up in front of the entire crowd and he said, Reggie, I've watched you from afar for 40 years. 40 years. And he said, the reason you've been so far from me is because you chose to stay away from me. Okay. And he said, but I've watched you. You've had tremendous highs and you've had tremendous lows. He said, have you ever thought why there was such that gap between so many highs and lows? And I said, yes, sir. I've thought about that my whole life. He said, I know why. I said, please tell me. He said, look around this room. And I started looking around the room and seeing familiar faces and stories of times we'd been together in the past. And he said, this is the last team you were ever on. You decided to live life by yourself. And he said, when you won big. But he said, when the valley of the shadow of death enters your path and you're by yourself, it takes more than it deserves because you have nobody there with you. Damn. And so what I decided from that day to this, and the things that I would encourage your listeners to understand, is never live a day alone again. Okay. And when you're able to build a company that gets up every day and wants to be together, there is not a mountain you cannot climb. There is not a valley too deep that together you can't traverse and find success on. There are not boundaries that restrict you from being able to be who you want to be. But Francisco, it is not done by yourself. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, or you're a solopreneur, or you're somebody who's kind of struggling with, depression even, or feeling like you're not successful, can I tell you what I would do? I'd find somebody to do life with you. Okay. So my job is, how do I draw a community inside of a company together that will fight for each other, that will build with each other, and will have each other in mind and want to be with each other every day. And if I can do that, there are going to be companies that are going to have more success together than they ever could apart. And that's kind of my ambition and goal. Sorry about that.
No, it's great. And I think that's the dream. How can you have a team in place that everyone push together to the same direction? And sounds easy, but it's not. And I love it. Reggie, I love everything that you just said. How do I know I have a good culture? And what are some things that can happen to a company that doesn't have that culture?
Yeah. So my wife and I married 37 years ago. And before we got married, we talked about the things that were important to us together. And that was like money and where we're going to live, where we're going to church, all those things that everybody talks about, right? But one of the things that we also talked about was children. We wanted to have children together. Mm-hmm. And so we actually had one, and he's 35 years old, and he's been the joy of our life, right? But I bring that up to say this. My wife could have wanted a child. She could have prayed for a child. She could have wished for a child. She could have hoped for a child. She could have dreamed about having a child. But until me or somebody like me came along, that was impossible. She could not have a child without me, nor could I have a child without her. So you see, sometimes it takes two to create something new. And that's what we don't do in business. We only see what's my capability, what's my strengths, what am I good at, and let me just go knock it out of the park. And what most companies are missing is that chemistry piece, where people bring their talents together. And listen to this, that talents coming together creates something that neither of them can do by themselves, just like me and my wife. So you've got elements inside of your business that if they were coupled together and there was a chemistry that was created in their work efforts, it's going to produce something that neither of them could ever produce by themselves. It's impossible. You see, people talk about scale, but they think that they can scale doing these individual route running. You can't do that. Now you can add more people to it and that may scale, but there is gained ground available to groups and teams and communities who will start cross-pollinating their talent to produce something that alone is impossible. And that's the biggest thing I see inside of companies. I find that there are 6 basic conditions that create a healthy, thriving, bulletproof community that can take on the world. And those things, a part of those things, one of those is chemistry. Okay. I don't know if you're a chemistry fan or not. I failed it in high school, but here's one that I learned. You know, oxygen is an element. Hydrogen is an element. Oxygen alone gives us the breath we need to have this conversation we're having right now. Is it important? Only if you want to live, right? If I want to live, I got to have oxygen. Hydrogen is an explosive device, right? That probably by itself could be dangerous. But when you combine the element of oxygen, listen to this, and 2 parts of hydrogen, those elements come together, they produce water. Okay. So oxygen by itself is a life giver, but when it's an element that's combined with another element, it blends something together that gives another life source, which is water. So now oxygen is not just giving us breath, but it's a part of quenching our thirst. And we get into business and we have people who have great talent running hard, but if I can ever get them to intersect, if I can ever get that great talent, those 2 elements to meet somewhere, they're going to produce something that's life-giving that they can't do by themselves. So chemistry is a huge part of what lies ahead for great companies.
Nice, I love it. And I love the analogy. So Reggie, whenever you see a company, if they are being successful, do you think it's because is their culture, or do you think it's because they are great in sales? Both.
So I think it's both. Like I think just because people get along don't mean they'll go do the work. You've still got to get people to go do work. I mean, there's still tasks that we all have to accomplish. So culture is just, you know what culture really is? It's that where it's the ability to blend a couple 3 things. Number 1, systems, processes, and people. How do you get all of that kind of aligned and moving together? And so if you've got a person who doesn't buy into the culture or is not aligned with where your team is going, it's always going to create friction. And so I think the most important thing is that we realize that we don't have to get along. We don't have to have this is not us build a campfire in the back of the office and just sit around and sing together. This is about how do we get joined? How do we align ourselves together? And then how do we to move business projects forward? Sometimes people look at culture, some soft term. It's a strategic term. Like it's very strategic to the overall growth and productivity of the company. So culture doesn't mean everything is going to change. It just is a part of the business that we've overlooked. And I come in and help build that out. And then the systems and the processes, it all just kind of fits together. And then we start moving together to produce things together we couldn't apart. And so that's kind of how, I look at it. When you talk about culture, it's not, you still got to have great people to sell. Look, I've got friends, you got friends who can teach people how to do that. Great sales strategies and programs and platforms, that's all in place. We just need to have people get better individually and better collectively so that all those great tools can have more impact than they are today.
Nice. Yeah, it's like the fuel of, right? So, Reggie, what are some characteristics? How do I know if, or what are some characteristics, negative characteristic of a company that is not doing good in culture? Like,
Yep.
what are some of the opportunities?
High turnover. There's a lot of turnover.
Turnover, okay.
In these environments where there's just a constant turn of people. That tells you there's a cultural problem.
Okay.
Because people, in my opinion, aren't looking just to go get a job. They're looking to go somewhere and stay. We don't create environments that people want to stay in. We can get them in. We go like, make more money than you ever made before. You know, we'll give you leads. We'll do. So we get people in. But when they get inside and they see that the real condition of the house, they leave. This is not what I was painted. So we've got to first of all, a better job of not just acquiring talent, but keeping it. And that takes a build of the culture that becomes sticky, that people don't want to leave. I tell people all the time, one of the best things that I do is help build spaces, places, cultures that people don't want to leave. Like, they just don't want to leave. And that is possible. And so turnover is a big problem. I'll tell you something else that bothers me is I think people lack real clarity when they come to most places in terms of not just what I do, but how I do it. And the biggest thing is why I do it, right? And so we have developed some tools that help establish very early what people are, how they're motivated, and the perfect place for them inside of your organization. You have to think about this. So what we do is we even think, well, I'll just hire enough good people and those good people will do good things and we'll all make great money. That's not true. I've seen a lot of good organizations hire good people. They just got them in the wrong place. And so what happens is these people are not motivated to do the work that you put them in. So they get burnt out and they look to go somewhere else. So you've got to really focus on clarity. How do we have the right people? Like, what motivates them if they're in the right slot, and how do they interact with others? We've also we lack clarity, and I mentioned earlier we lack chemistry. Everybody's staying away from each other. We don't know how to collaborate. You know, we're it's about us and our world, and to heck with everybody else kind of approach. And you know, I think the last negative that I see that I help work on is really. In many organizations, the only people who are celebrated are salespeople.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And so, and do salespeople need to be recognized? Yeah. But you know who else needs to be recognized? That person who's working an extra 12 hours just to get your $500 supplement approved. You need to, how about the people that are in customer service that are taking care of what you're selling? What about the people in production? Those people are out there in Texas, 110 degrees ambient temperature on the roof, and they're actually tearing shingles off and putting new ones down. How about them? And so what happens is if people don't feel like that their contribution is noticed, they'll go somewhere where it will be. And one of the things I help install is this whole idea of how do we recognize the contributions of everybody on our team, big or small, fairly and equally. And when you do that, what I've found is that if people get up, again, going back, I'm going to bed, thrilled that I'm here, hoping I wake up in the morning to go do it again. That's a company that respects contribution, and it makes people feel like this is where I belong. And can I tell you this? Where people feel like they belong, they don't leave.
That is they're a small community, right?
That's right. And that's the whole idea. To make what we're doing work, all of us have to play our parts. And all of our parts need to be recognized as significant as anyone else's part. You can sell a lot of roofs, but if nobody puts them on, you ain't gonna collect no money.
Exactly.
And if, scheduling, we don't think about, we go sell something and we go like, I've done my job. The coordination behind that, to get roofs put on, working with insurance companies and all that, it's critical. Everybody's role matters. The people answering the phone, if they're not really kind and, or they don't make the right presentation on the phone call to the potential customer, it affects it. Have you ever talked to somebody on the phone and you just went like, man, I don't know what else they do, but this person, if they're anything like this person, I want to do business with them. Like they're just kind and they're generous and they're thinking about the person they're on the phone with more than themselves. It's not routine. So hear me, guys. If you're wanting to build a culture that keeps people, recognize and honor everybody's contributions, and they'll never leave you.
Love it. Is recognition one of those 6 elements?
Well, it's called contribution.
Contribution.
Their contribution has to be recognized. So I have 6 conditions that I talk about. Number 1 is clarity, right? Number 2 is communication. So what's this? We talk at people, not to people. We just throw information at them, and there's a difference between talking at and talking to. We teach about, I think one of the things that we've become really, really lazy about is how we talk to each other. And we're not effective. I'm not talking about frequency of communication. I'm talking, Francisco, about accuracy in communication. And so we talk a lot about how we communicate with each other. And one of the things about communication that I stress in all of our trainings and culture development is this. If you feel a rub, or a challenge with somebody, don't let it go. Deal with it. So one of the most effective communicators that I know are those people who, when they notice something is off, they don't let it go any deeper. They don't ignore it. Now, this is what a lot of us do. We want to be team players. So what we do is go like, no big deal. And then that no big deal becomes a big deal later when it just keeps happening. So great communicators are able to take these issues that surface and get on them quick. They don't let them fester. The third thing is the chemistry piece that I talked about. The fourth thing I talk about is collaboration. Collaboration is not about harmony. It's about how do we move the business forward together. Like if we can get people, they don't have to be friends, or hopefully they are, but if they just realize that my job and your job have a purpose to it, that together us doing them will create a different outcome, collaboration becomes really, really important. And again, the last one to me, collisions. I'm sorry, I forgot collisions. I love collisions in business, as long as they don't cause dramatic damage. So why do we just avoid colliding with each other? It's because we think that a collision, there has to be a winner. Like if me and you've got differencing of opinions or the way about going at something, we just believe that for us to win, you've got to lose. I've got to win, you got to lose, you got to win, I got to lose. And it's this gladiator approach. It's just like, we just need to smash anybody that has differences of opinion. Well, I think these collisions, if they happen in a way that doesn't damage it too dramatically, it reshapes who we are together, not apart. And so you come out of a healthy collision looking different to be able to bring different solutions to the table. So collisions are, if I don't see them, I make them. When I get inside of a business, I can start reading and I start seeing lag indicators over here. And then I start looking at, there's some arrogance over here, and I'll put those two together and I'm gonna make them collide. Now I'm going to do that as I facilitate it and I watch it, but I'm gonna force it because you really don't know what you have until pressure is applied. This is very engineering to me. It's like, how do you create things? You manufacture things that ultimately give you a sign of the direction that you need to go, right? And then the last thing is I mentioned was contribution. So this is the last thing I'll tell you about culture in terms of this. My grandfather was a farmer, and not a farmer. He had a huge garden. All their food came out of the garden. Every summer I would go there and I worked the field for him. That's what I did. That was my summers. And right toward about when I was ready to go to college, after all these years of coming over there, I walked up to him one day and he's sitting on the back porch. And I'd been shucking corn all day long. And I walked up to him and I said, "Papa, why has this garden always provided you more than you even need. Because I would see him feeding families, like extended family and then just others, because his garden produced more than he and my grandmother could eat. Mm-hmm. And so I said, Papa, why does this garden do this? He said, there are two keys, Reggie, to a plentiful garden. He said, you've got to have good seed and you've got to have good soil. So the seed, if you look at this in business, the seed is the talent. Like you can have great talent, that seed. But if I take that seed and I go out to my front yard here and I walk over the front yard to the cement that's in the street in front of me or the asphalt, and I throw that good seed on that asphalt, what do you think it's going to do? That seed is going to die because it can't root. So here's that analogy. You chase seed, but maybe you as an owner need to focus on the soil. Okay. That soil is your culture. We need to break the ground. Papa said, good seed, good soil. If I don't have good soil, my seed doesn't matter. And so what I do is I come in and I really help turn that soil, that culture, so that when good seed is planted in it, it's going to reap a harvest beyond even what you have need of. But if you don't have good seed and soil, you can never have a great harvest. And that's what culture is to me.
I love it, Reggie. And are these all the elements that you just mentioned? Are these the 6 C's?
Yeah, they're what I call 6 conditions of a healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the conditions that you have to watch. You have to the 6. I have to watch how they're communicating with each other, what levels of chemistry are really what level, are they clear? All of those things, if they're aligned properly, kind of like a spine in the back, if they're aligned properly, the body moves. If something gets out of line and creates friction, that's where I kind of step in, and like a chiropractor, if you will, I kind of adjust. And so yeah, that's those 6 conditions I have seen are the 6 conditions that produce the most harvest for companies. Like if they're and there's probably 10,000 other ones that I'm not, but these are the 6 that I see that I help align, monitor, and track so that people can have the soil properly prepared for great talent to come and prosper.
Nice. Yeah, like the way I see it is like focus on this one first and then go worry about the rest, because but these ones are probably the most important right now in culture.
Correct.
Now, Reggie, imagine in this show, I always use the analogy, Pancho is my short name, Pancho Roofing. Imagine I'm Pancho Roofing and I'm starting my company. My 2 questions are, is culture something that I need to learn too, besides sales, marketing, finance, administration, and insurance, and all the rest things that I need to learn? And if yes, how can I start?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things in my research that I have found is that most owners, whether they're starting or they've been in business for a long time, they have so much weight on them. Adding something like this, as important as it is impossible. Like they just don't have the bandwidth. Like at Pancho's Roofing, you can only do so much. And so what I always recommend for people is this is the piece of their business that they can outsource to where someone can come in like me and help them manage these pieces. Okay. Help them to kind of watch this and make for sure that it's, as they add people and they recruit people through addition, and then even when some people leave, what are we learning about the experiences? But somebody has to oversee that. And so yes, they need to do it from the beginning, but you're going to have to resource most of that out. And I told somebody this yesterday. He goes like, this sounds really good, Reggie. I'm going to get my HR people to do it. I said, if you can, great. But the fact of the matter is, I don't have a dog in the fight. Like I'm not emotional about anything with their business. Like I want them to succeed, but I don't pick favorites. I don't know one person more than I know the next. All I look for is friction. Who's causing it? How do we fix it? And so sometimes in business, as we start getting more relational, we start losing perspective. Like, well, this one has sold more than this one, so I need this one to have more attention than this one. It's just natural. It's very human, like, to do that. I don't do that. I just come in and I'm looking at the indicators and I'm looking like, okay, so I do I'll give you an example. I have a tool I called a pulse check. And twice a month, I send this out to all the teams that I work with, and it's 3 or 4 questions. And it's really all about how they're thinking, how they're feeling, what's causing them stress, and what's giving them a sense of freedom. And they answer that for me, and it helps me to now look at, okay, if Susie Q is struggling on her KPIs that you're looking at on your dashboard, I can tell you why. She might be having some problems outside of work that are affecting what she's doing in work. That's the stuff I track, like how you're thinking, how you're feeling, because Forbes magazine said this: 90% of what we perform, how we perform every day, is affected by those 2 factors: how we think, how we feel. And nobody tracks them. I do. And so if it's such a huge component of people's outcome, why wouldn't you want to track it? I do. And so that's why having someone like me, whether you're new or existing in business, to track, to monitor, to detect things that your mind is running 1,000 different directions every day, but having somebody track and monitor that and then train to that, I think is critically important to anybody's success.
Nice. So, Reggie, let me see if I understand correctly. So do you recommend, if I don't have time, I don't know how to do it, do you recommend that I hire you even if I'm starting?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of important. I don't really work with a lot of startups,
okay,
but I think it's an interesting thought. And I think the reason is, I think the earlier that companies can start prioritizing how we look inside,
okay,
in terms of the way we're building the business, so that as you add people, they understand how you're built when they start. So what happens a lot of times is you get a company built, you go like, yeah, I need to focus on culture. Well, now you've got 20 people who've just kind of been winging it and doing it the way they want. You've accepted it. It's hard to come in and kind of break that out of people. It can be done, which is what I do every day. But sometimes, what if you built a company that you started with culture build as a priority to the overall build of your team? Before you hired a bunch of people, before you started, you just make culture a piece up front that includes your missions and your values and your expectations and all of those things that matter, so that when the first person walks in the door, they understand, and you're not making it up every time somebody new comes in. It's a standard, and it's the way we're built. Now, honestly, the reason that most people can't do that is that there's obviously there's a financial investment required, and a lot of guys coming into business really can't do that yet. And I totally understand it. But in my opinion, this is the most important foundational lay that you can make inside of a company, and to track it, to monitor it, and to absolutely keep it aligned, and generally by somebody that's from the outside.
Nice. I love it. Reggie, I have tons of questions that I wanted to keep going and going, but I think we are coming to the end. Reggie, so what's the last advice that you want to give my community about culture and about everything that you mentioned? The advice, and then Reggie, if you can share your information about Propel, your program, so everybody can contact you if they are interested.
So I think culture is critically important to anybody who wants to leave a legacy, not just in their lives, but in the lives of others. Because ultimately what I want to do, man, is I want to help companies to build a place that the people that are there want to come back to every day. And And why is that important? Because then you can get consistency. Now you can get predictability. Now you can start because you know what you're not worried about somebody's leaving somebody. You're not worried about that. You're worried about, let's go do the job together. And so I think culture lays a foundation that everything else is built off of. Because if you can ever get the people to become a team, working together, willing to give to one another, then the systems and processes will have more capacity because we are all doing the same thing, moving in the same direction. And so I think, culture, community, whatever you want to call it, is critically important to advancement. And, when you're looking at culture, every piece of the culture matters. And I think if I can help people to understand how to make every role in the company important, and if it's not, there don't need to be a role, right? There needs to be, every contribution needs to be recognized, every contribution needs to matter, and that comes with just properly building a company with the right people committed to accomplishing things together that they could not apart. And I don't remember the second part of your question.
The second part was, Lano, if you can mention where can they find you, profile,
okay.
your website, phone number.
So I'm easy to find on social media and on Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. They can usually find me there, but my website, the website that we have is just a one-pager. It's kind of just give people some ideas about things. It's culturaldisruptor.com. Not disruptors, but just disruptor, culturaldisruptor.com. And it'll give you some ideas there. And if you're interested more in, finding out more, it's a place to book a call with me. But, you can find me pretty well in any of the social channels today. I'm pretty well easy to get a hold of.
Nice. Yeah, and I saw that in your website, you can book a call, a strategic call to, if you want to talk more about this.
That's right.
Awesome. Reggie, thank you very much for all this information. I would like to have you again in the future so we can have the part 2, go a little bit deeper into this. Because there was a lot of questions that I couldn't share. But thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you for everyone listening, and talk to you soon, fam.
Thank you so much.